The Libra new moon occurring on October the 21st at 8:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is coming with a promise of beginnings and endings. Hi, my name's Carly, and we are here today with Water Within Astrology to talk about, like I said, the new moon in Libra occurring October 21st. And so adjust your time according to wherever you are located on the planet. But this new moon in Libra is bringing promises of beginnings and endings because we see every new moon as the beginning of a new lunar cycle. New moons is a time to plant seeds of intention and to plant seeds literally if you are someone who follows the lunar way of gardening. This is the harvest time. Libra season began on September the 22nd, and that marked the fall equinox. We are now fully in the darker half of the year, and the darkness is starting to become greater than the light as far as how much night or dark energy versus light energy we see in the sky. And of course, that is also depending on where you are located in the world. For the endings part, we are seeing a lot of planets here at the final degrees of a sign, and then we have planets at the beginning of signs. We actually only have one planet that's about in the middle area, technically two if you count Venus in Libra at 9 degrees. I would still consider that because it's in the first 10 degrees in the first decan, and it is still at the beginning of a sign. But the number 9 itself has ending energy as well, so we'll come back to that. And then we have the North Node in Pisces at 15 degrees, right? Smack dab in the middle, which means we are halfway through our time with North Node Pisces, South Node in Virgo. And isn't it interesting how we moved out of the eclipse season where the lunations were occurring near the North Node or South Node in Virgo and Pisces, and now we are going into, we just had our Aries full moon, and now we have the Libra new moon, which is coincidentally enough, that's just how it works, the last year and a half before January of this year, 2025, we had the North Node in Aries and we had the South Node in Libra. So we're coming back to these themes that we had a full year and a half of working with as the nodes, and we are revisiting old lessons and we are revisiting skills that we have acquired over the last couple years. And we're seeing now as this check-in point where we are with all those lessons that we learned. Because just because we had the North Node and South Node in those signs doesn't necessarily mean everybody took the time and did the work that they needed to do to learn the lessons that Aries and Libra were teaching us. And so we are seeing, like I said, 28 degrees is where the sun and moon are meeting in Libra for this new moon. And we also have, like I said, Venus in Libra at 9 degrees. So 28 degrees is over here at the end. 9 degrees is here a little bit closer towards the beginning. They are in the same sign, but they are not exactly close enough to be relevant to each other. And we also have two signs in two bodies, celestial bodies, in the opposite sign of Aries. And that is Neptune at 0 degrees of Aries. And then we have Chiron at 24 degrees of Aries. And that is considered close enough, 4 degrees away, to be an opposition. An opposition is what we see at the full moon, the sun and the moon at opposite positions. And we have a standoff there. And we want to look at which of the two energies is more powerful in a place that's well dignified. And of course, we are going to see this new moon as the more dignified position because Chiron in Aries, Chiron is not a planet or a star the way the sun and the moon are. So that's just what that is. It's a minor celestial body energetically. But that does not mean, it doesn't go without saying, that this opposition to Chiron in Aries is a big deal. It is, like I said, bringing up these lessons that we went through with the North Node in Aries during all of 2024 and about half of 2023. And so Chiron in Aries, I think I've talked a decent amount about, but I'll go ahead and say it again in this video. Chiron in Aries deals with Aries themes, and the Chiron is the wounded healer. And so where have we accumulated any wounds around Aries themes, such as hyper-independence, becoming to the point where you don't trust anyone and you tell yourself that you don't need anyone, you don't need any help. You're maybe too arrogant to ask for help because you're too hot-headed and you think that you can just do anything. You think you're invincible, and therefore maybe you can just make impulsive decisions because you're not thinking it through, or you don't want to surrender your ego. With Aries, it can also be dealing with masculinity, and it can mean anyone who has a male body and what's done to them in their early stages of life, such as circumcision and the pain and trauma that's accumulated through that process, whether that's subconscious or conscious. It still is a thing. Masculinity in a way of becoming, if you are someone who does not identify as a man or male, you could look at how you have become overly masculinated in your way of protecting yourself or becoming more aggressive because you've been hurt. That could be very relevant. It's definitely coming up for me a lot. And the last one, it could be dealing with abandonment issues. And so looking back, Aries deals with that first stage of our life, that first sign of the zodiac. And we can look back and see what happened to us when we were young, when we didn't have autonomy, and where we didn't have the choice to make decisions that were best for ourselves. And so we were reliant on others to make those decisions. And maybe they didn't always make the best decisions for us. And now we're having to deal with how that's affecting us in our adult lives. I know I said the last one, but this is really the last one, is autonomy. And, understanding what autonomy is and how deep we are willing to go with our own sense of autonomy and how much of that we have given away, especially since 2020 in the global situation that we all were part of. And we all had a choice point to make about our health and our bodies and surrendering our autonomy over to the government and surrendering our ability to choose, right? Because a lot of people would say after what happened in 2020 that they didn't have a choice, even though we always did. And so there's pain from all of these things, and we're dealing with the wound, and Chiron is the wounded healer. So because it has the wound that it does, it is then able to become a healer to others because of the work that it has done on itself to heal its own wound. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it has fully healed that wound. It's actually more associated with a wound that we kind of just learn to live with, and we learn to cope in healthy ways, and we learn the tools that we need to, maintain our stability mentally. And that can be just enough because, maybe it is something that we will never heal. Maybe it is something we'll never get an apology about. Maybe it is something that, we can't grow back our foreskin. Like, I'm sorry, it's not funny. It's just, that's just not a thing. You can't do it. And you also can't take back, even if you can make amends with certain things and certain things, you can't take back the pain that was inflicted in the moment. And so, like, all of this is alchemy. And alchemy in the sense of turning one thing into another, turning a painful part of our lives into something that we can use as a teaching point and as a healing tool for us to help others. And you know, that's kind of like why we're here, is so that we can all share the gifts of learning how to heal ourselves with each other, and share tools and share ideas and share. You know, this is Pluto in Aquarius, and I'll get to this in a second, but Pluto in Aquarius is a big player in this new moon, and it is telling us to come together, to have the conversations. It's an air sign just like Libra. It's wanting us to come together and have those conversations, because what that Chiron and Aries also might be making us feel is like that we're the only ones, and we're isolated, and we're the no one understands. That could definitely be a Pluto and Aquarius thing too. No one understands, so therefore I'm just gonna isolate, and I'm gonna, you know, blame myself even, and maybe you know, never get that moment of realizing like, wow, I'm not the only one who has been through this, and therefore I have help. You know, Aquarius is associated with the 11th house, and the 11th house is support, and from the community, support from our fellow man. And, you know, Chiron and Aries could be trust issues, like huge trust issues, and just like, of course, I don't blame anyone for having those right now after what we saw with Pluto and Capricorn, and we saw in 2020, and we're seeing now with our current political situation. And there's a collective trust issue thing going on where we all are being asked to act, like, do we even trust ourselves, right? And Chiron and Aries is like, can we trust ourselves? Can we trust that we as individuals, as sovereign beings, do have the power to heal ourselves and to overcome the obstacles that we didn't have control over in our lives? And, you know, there's always going to be something that we didn't have control over that we might have just like pushed down and like pretended didn't exist and ignored and avoided, you know. And the Pluto in Aquarius is like, what have we been avoiding, and what have we become a little bit numb and shut down around that needs to now be awakened and needs to be dealt with? And it is clearly causing us issues, you know, issues with giving our power away, issues with not being empowered, issues with a lot of things. And, you know, with like how much our soul, how healthy is our soul and our connection to our soul and a connection to our authenticity. That's going to be a big one. So we have two squares happening with this new moon. The new moon is squaring Jupiter in Cancer at 24 degrees, and we are also squaring Pluto in Aquarius. And, you know, those are two big players in the solar system. Every planet has its own place and power, but Pluto and Jupiter are the big guys. And it used to be like Saturn was the big guy, and he still definitely is huge. But I think Pluto has this energy about it that is so large and so powerful that the reason why, one of the reasons why people who decide what planets are and what aren't planets have kind of demoted Pluto. I know it's because they found other bodies that are just as large, if not larger than Pluto, so they kind of had to like take back its planethood. But Pluto is still Pluto at the end of the day, and Pluto is associated with power. It's associated with the soul. It's associated with death and rebirth. It's associated with um, the mystical and how we relate to the mystical realm and how we relate to our own shadows and shadow work. And it's really powerful. And so that's at play. And Pluto in Aquarius, like I've been saying, is like calling us back to our authenticity. And Jupiter in Cancer is about where have we been learning from the past? Where have we been learning from the divine feminine, from our families, from our sense of feeling connected to ourselves, our bodies, our families, our communities, our home? Like, what does home feel like to us? And what is the lesson in it? That's the Jupiter aspect. It's like, where have we learned potent lessons from these things, and where are we expanding deeper into those things? And with the square to Libra, it's like Libra is the air sign. It's a cardinal air sign. It's initiatory. It's like, let's start here. Start of a new season, start of the harvest season. Start to really look at and have those conversations, perhaps, with Libra being a very relational sign. Air signs are all connected to communication, speaking, words, air, right? Air is coming out of the mouth as you're speaking, our breath. And we're having those conversations, perhaps, with our families or with our communities, Cancer and Aquarius. And maybe there are things that we have been avoiding, or we have been, people pleasing to the point of pushing our true self down and pushing our safety out away from what's important, like making our safety not a priority because we're too busy people pleasing with that Libra energy. Libra has two sides to it, just like every sign. And part of the shadow of Libra can be people pleasing and giving oneself away. And it can be, being out of balance with where our needs are versus other people's needs. And we have to continuously do this balancing act. It's not just like staying stable. It's always counterbalancing, and it's always needing to be, checks and balances. And the healed part of Libra is, where are our relationships actually feeling reciprocal? Where are we feeling that there's equal give and take, and there's equal, it's not perfect. And we just got through Virgo season, where we learned that things don't have to be perfect, but we can still continue to be discerning in our relationships, and we can say, is this something that is feeling equally giving and taking? And is it leading to resentment? Whatever the relationship might be. This could be romantic and family. It could be work. It could be friends. It could be anything. A relationship to ourselves, even. Maybe like we're too selfish. Anyways, it could be any of those things. And we're doing those checks and balances now, where we're asking ourselves truly, one question I would love for us to all ask ourselves, if there's something that what I'm saying is coming to mind: does this relationship charge me up, or does it deplete me energetically? Because our hearts and our bodies are like batteries, and we can feel really recharged by some things and really depleted by others. And tuning into that is a really important skill that I think a lot of us during that Aries and Libra South Node, North Node time were asked to tune into and to cultivate that skill within ourselves. And so asking ourselves, if there's something coming up, does this charge me or does this deplete me? It's really important. And then, of course, I already talked about the opposition to Chiron. And so when we have a Libra new moon, we want to look to Venus, which is the ruling planet of Libra. And Venus, like I said, is in Libra. It is in one of its home temples, is what we call it. And so it's very comfortable there. It's very able to bring Venusian qualities to the situation. Maybe there's more art involved in your life right now. You're feeling more creative. You're feeling more of a drive to speak your truth with the air quality of Libra. Maybe you're being called to speak in a way that would be advantageous to whatever you decide is justice or not, and you're speaking out in that square to Aquarius. You know, it's like, are we speaking out against injustice, and are we taking time to Aquarius can be revolution. Are we participating in a revolution of the heart and of the divine feminine and of what's right and what we decide is just at the end of the day? And there is a revolution taking place, and that doesn't have to look like anything specific. It has to look like however you are taking back your power. That's what that square to Aquarius is like, power to the people. How are you dropping the mask that Pluto and Capricorn forced you to wear for 20 years? And where are you also, making little changes in your life, making, changing your mindsets, changing things that ultimately better your life in a way that benefits the whole, right? Because Aquarius is still about the whole, and Libra is about considering the other. And that Chiron and Aries could be like, but are the changes you're making just for your own personal gain? And does this actually benefit the whole? Does it actually benefit even your close relationships with Libra? And those are valid questions to be asking ourselves in this time. And Venus herself is not making any aspects, so we're going to move on. And we're going to look at the grand water trine that is going to be forming very soon. And it includes, it's already formed. I'm coming to you today on Thursday, I believe it's the 16th. Something like that. 17th, 16th. Yeah. So, by the time this new moon hits, which is next Tuesday, we will have a grand water trine in the chart, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, because trines are positive and harmonious aspects, and they flow really well together, and they work together in a way that's beneficial. And water is this, element that when we put 3 cups of water in one pool, they just kind of all become one, right? There is no separation, and there is a beautiful, harmonious aspect to the water and the way it flows, and the way it soothes, and the way that it heals, and the way that it cleanses, and all these things. So, the grand water trine is obviously dealing with the water signs, and there are 3 of them. There are also 3 planets in, technically Black Moon Lilith is not a planet, but we have 3 bodies in Scorpio, and technically the one that's making the closest aspect is actually Black Moon Lilith, but we also have Mars and Mercury there. Mercury at 20 degrees, Mars at 20 degrees, at the same exact degree point. that's a powerful punch as well, and we will get to that. But so Black Moon Lilith here at 23 degrees. And then Saturn in Pisces at 29 degrees. Saturn in Pisces is at 26 degrees now. It's moved even faster than I thought. And then, of course, we have Jupiter in Cancer, like I said in the beginning, at 24 degrees. So, these three water signs, Saturn in Pisces, we've been talking about for a while. Saturn is still considered in a tight conjunction with Neptune, which is at 0 degrees of Aries. And we are looking at Saturn and Pisces, or Saturn and Neptune being together as a reforming of our reality, because Neptune dissolves. Pisces also dissolves. Saturn is in Pisces and conjunct Neptune. We are dissolving old systems of structure, governments, power structures. Technically, Saturn is associated with the law and rules and the justice system, as well as Libra. So we're seeing lots of reforming. We're seeing lots of destruction, dissolving, rather, if you'd rather use that word. Because the old ways of being are being exposed. Pluto in Aquarius is like exposing the corruption, and it's freeing us from whatever shackles that we've been bound to for so long. And so it's bringing those shadows out. It's bringing the shadows out of our community, right? It's also like shining the light on our personal and local communities too, and any corruption that might be there as well. Especially like with all the technology that's happening and the things where in my town there's a lot of talk right now about these new data centers coming in and using up all of the water and doing what they do, and there's a lot of talk there and a lot of exposing of the corruption that's coming through those systems. So there could be a lot of truth coming out about our relationships, and if you're having those conversations with people and you are coming to the point where you're realizing like they're not someone who, you know, sees certain things as an issue, or if they kind of turn a blind eye to things that are happening that they shouldn't be, it's really difficult right now because there's a lot of things that are going on, and a lot of people are not paying attention, and a lot of people are still stuck in that Pluto Capricorn kind of sheeple type of mentality where they're just waiting for someone else to tell them what to believe. They're waiting for someone else to give their autonomy away too, because it's too much for them. It's too heavy. You know, Saturn in Pisces could also be like escapism of your responsibility, and it can be spiritual bypassing, and it can be, you know, all these things where we avoid responsibility as individuals, and that is not good. That's not a good place to be. It is important for us, as much as any of the other things that I've said are still relevant about Pluto in Aquarius, is to remember that Pluto in Aquarius is here to bring the power back to the people. Yes. Capricorn was power over structures. Aquarius is everyone in the community has equal power, and it has equal, like an equal sense of liberation and an equal sense of freedom. Because Aquarius is deeply, deeply associated with freedom and authenticity. So, let's keep going. And, you know, this other part of the trine is, again, this Jupiter in Cancer. And I think with all three of these water signs being feminine signs, we are seeing a beautiful foundation of the divine feminine coming together, working together, and we're being asked to look at our relationship to the feminine, look at our relationship to not just females. You know, it's never just about females when I'm talking about masculine and feminine energy. It's about our relationship to feminine characteristics such as rest and receiving and, you know, like, can you even receive a compliment? Like, man or woman, I don't care, or whatever, I don't care whatever you are. Can you receive a compliment? Because that Chiron and Aries could be pointing to self-worth as well. And, you know, worthiness in general. And so, you know, can we practice just simply learning how to take a compliment instead of passing it off to someone else and, you know, like validating our unworthiness? Self-sabotage, that could be huge Chiron Aries theme. And, you know, do we let ourselves rest when we need rest? Can we listen to our body? And can we really hear even though we don't speak the same language, can we hear the messages that the body is trying to send us through the symptoms? During that Virgo double back-to-back eclipse situation we had, one of them wasn't an eclipse, but it might as well have been. You know, maybe have been going through some like things with the body and learning how to speak its language, learning how to adjust accordingly to what your body needs and what it doesn't need. Perhaps it was making sacrifices around things that you know, considered escapist things, like, you know, maybe you ate to cope with your emotions, or maybe you did, you know, whatever else, with food to like escape. You know, maybe you didn't eat and that's a way of dealing with your emotions, because the Virgo Pisces axis is very much related to the body mind connection and like how we treat our body and how we think about ourselves and how much we, you know, how much we can connect with our own divinity, Pisces, through the experiences that we're having in the body, right? Because we're spiritual beings in a human body. So, without going too far into that tangent, you can always look back at my other videos if you are looking to have some more information on that. So yeah, Grand Water Trine, really beautiful. Once again, we're continuing to see the rise of the divine feminine. It's a beautiful thing. We're coming out of girl boss mode or whatever, you know, boss mode, and we're starting to value different things. And we have Uranus moving back into Taurus for a little bit of time later, I think this year. And I think the past year, what we had with Uranus and Taurus was like, and I know it's been there longer than a year, but Uranus and Taurus was telling us and working with us around how do we view our self-worth, and how do we view the earth, and how do we relate to the earth, and how do we, you know, once again, Taurus is a feminine sign. How do we relate to the feminine and the earth herself, like the physical earth? And I think there was something else I was going to say with that. But anyways, it's going back there to, once again, revisit those themes around self-worth and around, you know, what would happen, what is happening on a global scale through the things that we're seeing, the earth symptoms, right? If we think of the earth as a body, we're seeing symptoms that the earth is showing us that are asking us, just like the body is asking us, to fix and to deal with and to adjust and to, you know, prioritize. And are we being avoidant, or are we listening and able to hear what she's saying to us? And where do we stand on the scale of, right, Libra, the scales? Here's our big message of the day, of the lunation rather. there's two sides of the scales maybe perhaps that we're on right now, and it's like, where are we between apathy and empathy? And I would say apathy is obviously it's this feeling of not feeling, right? It's a feeling of feeling shut down and closed off and away from the emotions and cut off from those feeling parts of us. And empathy is a beautiful, beautiful quality that for some reason has been put on this weird pedestal of like, you know, in the new age world, it's like, oh, I'm an empath. And it's like, yes, I would hope so, because otherwise the alternative is like you don't care. So it's like caring and compassion and being able to actually step into another person's perspective and feel what they feel, and feeling completely cut off from others and our ability to have an open heart to others' pain and to others' situations, not caring and being super selfish, right? That apathy is going to be more like the Aries, and then the Libra is going to be enmeshment, right? It's the empathy. And obviously both of those things to a certain degree can be helpful and harmful at the same time. With apathy, we can benefit sometimes from detaching emotionally from situations so that we can do what we need to do. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's also associated with leadership and being the first one to lead things. And throughout history, we have known that people who are good leaders, or at least this was the common philosophy and way of going about this, is that, you know, people would elect leaders who were able to, in the moments of terror and distress and emergency, were able to kind of shut down the emotional aspect of themselves and do what needed to be done. And of course, we are seeing now that, you know, it's tricky and it's a balance, and it's, you know, we don't want a leader that isn't caring. We do want an effective leader, but do we want them to be so shut down in their emotions that they don't care about us as citizens, or they don't care about the earth, and they don't care about, you know, anything other than their wants and needs and their beliefs and their status and whatever else. And then we have the Libra part where we are seeing, like, if we are too emotional, we can get caught up and we can make irrational decisions, and we can, you know, have outrages and outbursts or whatever. But at the same time, if we're feeling too much and we're too enmeshed with our relationships or with any other being, we lose our sense of boundaries and autonomy and of, you know, like we go falling into that people pleasing. And so finding the balance on the Libra new moon, what a concept. We have Scorpio season starting the very next day after this new moon on the 22nd. And then we will be quickly moving into Jupiter retrograde and Mercury retrograde, both going retrograde around the 9th and 11th of November. Pluto just went direct on the 13th, so just a couple of days ago. Pluto has never been direct in Aquarius in this lifetime for any of us. And at least it wasn't going direct while it was in Aquarius. It did move into Aquarius while it was direct, and it was there, but it never stationed while it was in Aquarius already, if that makes sense. So we're seeing a lot of that energy amplified. And like I said, Pluto packs a punch. Pluto's not here to play. It might be the smallest planet in the solar system. There might, even be bigger guys out there that we have no idea what they're about. But Pluto is powerful. And Pluto's ruling about half this chart right now, with it ruling over Scorpio. Like I said, we almost have a stellium in Scorpio. We will be, once the sun moves into Scorpio the day after this new moon, we will have that stellium. And that means 4 or more planets in one sign, by the way. It's one of my favorite words, and I forget that people don't know what it means sometimes. So, yeah. Pluto. Become authentic. Bring your power back to the people. We're seeing, protests happening here in my community. Very anxious to see how that's going to play out, and hopefully that Venus in Libra is going to be bringing us some actual justice and some actual peace and some actual, Venus is about bringing good things and feeling good and feeling beautiful. And how connected are we to any of those qualities right now? And those are feminine qualities, is like peace and calmness and stabilized nervous systems and like resting and like feeling rested and feeling at peace and feeling safe and, feeling connected to each other. Hopefully this is what is going to be coming through as the dominant energy. I also cannot ignore the other Scorpio stuff, because Scorpio is about bringing those shadows to the light. So it might not be pretty. It might be really ugly. It might involve destroying an old system so that a new one can come in. We don't know, but we can speculate with the planets and the archetypes and see what's going on. So I think what I need to say also about removing ourselves from the emotional aspects of certain situations. Libra is the scales. It's the only inanimate object in the zodiac, and it almost is like our strength comes from the ability to detach, because we don't want to fall into that codependent enmeshment type of way of living, but we also can't deny our human innate need to connect with each other. So I think it's a really interesting time, because we're having some really cutting edge research being done about the nervous system, the human nervous system, and how deeply wired we are connected, or how deeply wired we are for connection. If you are someone who's struggling with codependency or wanting to understand more about your relationships and your attachment style, it would be really advantageous for you to read the book Attached, and I will link that below. I will also say that looking at, with the Chiron and Aries, our birth story is really important to see psychologically what kind of trauma we're still holding on to, what kind of pain we're still holding on to. That psychological bit is where the Scorpio, Mars, and Mercury come in. They're right there at the same point, and it's like Mars is like maybe where we've been injured, right? It's like the sharpness, like where we've been at war with ourselves or in the world or whatever, what kind of pain, what kind of like war we've been fighting. And the Mercury is like, can we hear the messages, and can we work every day towards healing those things in little, small but effective ways, and not doing this thing that a lot of people like to do, where they say, like, I can't make a change. That little bit of effort is not going to make a change. And it's like, that little bit of effort is where you start to change anything, right? There's like the phrase that's like, a year from now, you'll wish you had started today. And so let that be something that builds momentum, and allow yourself to be a beginner, right? So yeah, and the last thing is like looking at our family dynamics, and that's talked about in the attachment book, but looking at how our relationships to our parents were, or lack thereof, our family dynamics, our family upbringings, what happened in our home, what happened, that Jupiter in Cancer is like looking back at the past and all the things that have transpired up to this point in our lives, and seeing what we've learned, and seeing what's valuable, and seeing, like a new perspective on it all, and being able to hopefully heal, because Cancer is that healing water energy. It's like learning how to be our own mother, and like maybe mending the relationship with our mothers, or our feminine in general, right? Like I said, it could be any of those things. And the last thing I will say about Libra is it's associated with the god Ma'at in Egyptian philosophy. And Ma'at is a god that weighs your heart on the cosmic scales at the time of your death to see if you were going to be reincarnated or not. One side of the scales is weighed with your heart, and the other side is the feather. And so it's said that if your heart weighs more than a feather at the end of your life, you have to reincarnate and go back and try to feel lighter in your heart. And, that seems almost like an impossible task. And it also feels like, it's obviously a worthy goal, a worthy, thing to aspire to. And so can we continue to lighten our own hearts? And that Venus is also like love, and, looking at like where we've self-sacrificed and self-love, and also like where have we just given too much to our relationships that aren't reciprocal? And are we also, willing to make any sacrifices that need to be made in order to maintain them? And looking at where, yes, the sacrifice is a good thing, and it's something that will benefit me and bring me more happiness in the long run with my relationships, or is it something that's going to cause resentment and cause me to continue to self-sabotage myself and my self-worth? So I think I want to say one more thing about boundaries, because like I said, Libra has this codependency tendency where it's like everything, if you're a Libra rising, Libra in your first house, it's like everything in your identity is associated with your relationships. And maybe it could go, either way, and you have no relationships and you are like fully whole in yourself, right? Libra can also be like this being that is like, I don't need another relationship because I have married the masculine and feminine within me, and I feel full by that, which is perfectly fine. And it's, that's up to you. If that's authentic or not is the real question. Like, is that something you're just telling yourself to, cope with the fact that you're not in a relationship? That's all of that is like psychological work that we're doing right now with all this this Scorpio. And I think it's really interesting to look at Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Neptune was in Pisces and it will be going back. And it also is like, Saturn is the planet of boundaries. And Saturn in Pisces is like no boundaries. It's like feeling connected to everyone in a way that might not actually be especially helpful if you're someone who struggles with boundaries already. Saturn in Pisces, this could be a really hard time for you. And maybe you feel like you have lost the ability to set boundaries for yourself. You've lost your autonomy with Aries. And collectively, on a psychological level, we've all kind of been through a brainwashing of like, your boundaries don't matter. Your autonomy doesn't matter. Just do what's best for the whole. Just do whatever you need for you. That doesn't matter. Just make the sacrifice for everyone else. And that is completely unhealthy, and it is absolutely bonkers, in my opinion. And is also deeply rooted in patriarchal and Christian dogma. So Christian dogma and patriarchal dogma says like, do your work, make your sacrifices, and then you'll get this reward. As long as you've suffered enough, you will get the reward. As long as you've hated and shamed yourself enough, then you'll get the reward. So I'm not going to get too far into that, but that's something that's coming up for me. For a personal share, I am dealing with the psychological repercussions of my Christian upbringing and of my family also being very much another layer on top of the Christian philosophy that was put on me as a child, that I did not have a choice in the matter. But now I do have a choice, and there's like gaslighting going on, and it's like, no, I know what happened. I'm learning every day about what kind of repercussions are actually evidence in my adult life, and what has happened as a child that has now resulted in these adult qualities in me. And so, make sure not let anyone else gaslight you into, feeling like your feelings are not valid or your experience isn't valid. And after we just went through those Virgo things, we are really, we were asked to really look at how much we're identifying as the victim. And while we are victims in some capacity, we don't want to stay in that victimhood. We want to alchemize any of those feelings into empowerment, into like becoming the hero's journey. And that's a whole, another tangent. So, so ask Saturn and Neptune in Pisces what happened to your boundaries. And ask 2020 and ask Pluto and Capricorn what happened to your boundaries, because, So that's what I have for us today astrologically, and please ask any questions that you might have. I feel like a lot of those things that I just talked about, I could have talked for probably another hour about each little bit, but I'm trying to keep it together here. Well, let's go ahead and pull a rune for this Libra new moon. I also learned that this is relevant. I also learned that the Ankh symbol, which is of course also an Egyptian symbol, it is a battery as well. It's pulling from the earth and it's bringing it up to the third eye, and it's bringing it back down to the earth, and it's like using that earth energy to cleanse and heal. But if you look closely, it's also got this like Libra symbol in it. It's the top is a like straight line with a hump through it, and then another straight line underneath. So I thought that was really interesting, and I will share that information below as well, because this is all this Egyptian stuff is really new to me, and it's really beautiful and resonating deeply. So I'm continuing to learn, just as we all can continue to learn until we die. When we stop learning, we stop growing. And knowledge is power, y'all. Last thing I'll say about that is Aquarius Pluto is like bringing the water. It's the water bearer. That water is information, and that information and knowledge and learning is about how is helping us and assisting us to take our power back. So alrighty, I think I freaking drew this one last time. Okay, actually, I think last time I decided that I don't think I have it in my notes, and I don't, but there is another symbol here that I believe is the same, and I am gonna just go ahead and say that it is the same. This one in my notes is like a triangle, an upside down triangle, and this one is like a gate. So, or even like a top of a guillotine or whatever, like where you hang someone or cut their head off. And this is the rune Uras, and it means water, rain, or aurochs. Okay, so I looked it up, and aurochs, or however you say that name, is an extinct species of cattle. And I would say that's also very related to the feminine, right? Because cows are where a lot of people still get their milk from, and they are feminine beings that, right? If a cow gives milk, it's a mother, it's a female cow. And it has to be pregnant. It has to be a mother cow to, pregnant or nursing to actually get the milk flowing. So, just a fun fact for anyone who still thinks that cows just make milk naturally all the time. They do not. And the milk is meant for their babies. No other mammal. So, just saying, that's a whole rabbit hole that I will not get into right now. And so that's our rune for today: water, rain, and aurochs. And let's get into our energy oracle deck. I thought the energy was good for the air sign of Libra. And so this is my first deck that I ever had my whole life. I love it so much. And it's one that I know quite well, but I still have my little book here just in case. Let's see what we get. Which card do we need today? My energy oracle deck for this collective reading on YouTube for the Libra new moon happening very soon. Okay. So we have strategy is what came out. And then we have deceit on the bottom of the deck. And there are reversed meanings. So it was reversed, that deceit, and then the strategy was upright. Strategy is one of those ones that's pretty obvious. They're both mildly obvious, but it's funny, that's the 21st card, and this is happening on the 21st, but it's obviously about making a plan. This card shows a pen, journal, compass, and key. When you receive this card upright, it indicates that this is the optimum time for setting a very specific strategy for achieving your goals. Write about the direction you want to go in. Consider any potential change in course that might be needed. Be aware of the particulars regarding your goals. Have some conscious plan in mind. Structure the short-term goals needed to make your long-term goal a reality. Just like I said, going every day to make some small little change eventually gains momentum and eventually gets you farther than you might think it will by starting small. This card is telling you to take some time setting things in order. It's time to take full control, add thought to action, and set your sights on the road ahead. So maybe what happened during that Aries full moon was impulsive and aggressive and a little bit thoughtless, and now we're able to look at the Libra energy and be a little bit more discerning and be a little bit more, like, okay, what is actually serving me and what is not, and take action from there. I think I just realized another way of looking at this Libra Scorpio stuff going on, because Libra is about communication and it's about relationships with others, but it also can be about communication with ourselves, communicating about what's going on internally. And it can be, very well associated with journaling. It could be like therapy, stuff that is a way of digging deeper into the information about things, but maybe in a private way, maybe in a way that isn't shared with others, and it is, maybe eventually it will be shared with others, and that could be the plan. It's like, I'm going to start here, do some therapy on my own, and then eventually I will hopefully get to a point where I can invite my family or invite, someone else who needs to be there. Or maybe it's not for anyone else, and that's up to you. So that could be something that's going on there. With deceit, reversed, hidden tactics, or manipulation. So Scorpio. Receiving this card reversed puts you on notice that the deceit of the past is over or about to end. Pluto in Aquarius. Yeah, the deceit of the past is over or about to end. Perhaps some entity at work is being dissolved. Whoa, that was pretty spot on. Or maybe a more open communication has developed in your personal life. Okay? Be assured that the negative and dishonest energy is on its way out, and take advantage of a new, peaceful, and open environment, one where you will be able to forge more success and greater comfort. On a deeper level, this card reversed is telling you that the period of self-deceit is over. You are now ready to see the abiding truth of your own value, power, and deserving. It may take continued effort, but your honesty with yourself regarding these truths will bring even greater value into your life. Where are you still wearing the mask to people please others? Where has that mask been worn for so long that it's like, it feels like if you would take it off, you would take off your own skin? Can we slowly, go to the edges of the mask and massage our oils and our healing balms and carefully, peel back when, and this is a metaphor, obviously, but, what do we need to do to effectively remove that without hurting ourselves and without causing greater harm, and where we don't lose our sense of authenticity and, our true selves and our true nature? What have we lost in the process of wearing a mask for so long? And can we reclaim that? And, are we brave enough to do the work? Because Scorpio is about being able to go to those dark places and come back greater. I think it's really beautiful that we see, these themes highlighted in nature, and we see the beauty of letting go of the trees, leaves, and we see how beautiful it is for them to come down and to change color and to turn from one thing to another, to alchemize themselves. And, we know that even though they are dying now and they are going to be gone for a while, they will come back and it will be beautiful again, and even better. So once again, coming back to that faith aspect, North Node Pisces, coming back to our spiritual practices, and coming back to our sense of relating to the divinity within us and the divinity within all things, and using the tools, right? Like I said, our breath is really powerful. Using breath work here, it can be super simple. Nadi Shodhana, is very, very Libran, I think. And so you take your pinky and your thumb, you inhale through the left nostril, plug the left nostril, exhale through the right nostril. Inhale through the right nostril, exhale through the left. Inhale through the left, exhale through the right. And inhale through the right. So switching after the inhale. I also like to hold my hand like this with my pointer finger and my middle finger on my third eye, just to bring that third point into the game. And you could also just bring your eye gaze in and up towards that third point, that equilibrium, that balancing point. And you're balancing the left and right hemispheres of the brain. You're balancing your feminine and masculine sides energetically, bringing them together. And so that's one super simple one that you can practice every single day as a starting point if you're someone who's looking for those types of resources. I would love to answer any questions and offer the resources that I have. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe, do all the things that YouTube does. And yeah, I want to thank you all so much for staying to the end of this video. For those of you who are still watching, I see you. I thank you for your support. And maybe send this video to someone else who you think it might benefit. And please, please, please be safe and peaceful and loving and, diligent during this time of the Libra new moon. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks.